Good afternoon, everyone. I'm slightly overexcited to be surrounded by so many live human beings today, but I'm going to try and remain calm. My name is Ian Stirling. I'm the co-founder of Muckle Break, and I'm just going to explain a bit about our company today. Our company is made up of, it was really founded for the purpose of building a whiskey distillery in our hometown of Edinburgh, and that is the Port of Leith distillery. But that's just taken ages and ages. So in the meantime, we set up a gin distillery where we produce an award-winning gin called Linden Lime. And then the third sort of part of this wonderful trinity is the Leith Export Company that's really quite nascent, but sort of our retail arm and something that we're building up into to some brands with as well. So I'm going to tell you really about our origins, first of all, go back to the mist of time when I was having terrible hair, sort of a decade. This is me and my business partner, Paddy, back in 2012. As I say, we're lifelong friends from Edinburgh. At the point at which this picture was taken, we were in London. I was selling wine to Marks and Spencers and importers around the world. Paddy was a chartered accountant, and he would go on to become finance director for WeWork in Europe. So he's really good at spreadsheets and stuff like that. And between us, we were whiskey fanatics. We were really quite obsessed. We were going to tastings. We were learning everything that we could. And in this picture, experimenting with elements of whiskey production. That's as much as I can say for legal reasons. But together we hatched this plan that what we really wanted to do was build a whiskey distillery in our hometown of Edinburgh. And we so set off on a sort of decade-long odyssey to make this happen. It was painful. We found an investor. We found a site. We designed a distillery, we lost the investor. We found new investors, we lost the site. So this beautiful building you see here is never going to be built, sadly. There's flats up on that site now. But it's all worked out fine in the end. With the great help of Edinburgh Council and Ocean Terminal Shopping Centre, we found our current site right next to the Royal Yacht Britannia. And once we had that site secured, we were finally able to sort of get in business. Yet another picture of me, still in that bad hair decade, where I'm signing our first investment agreement for £400,000 that got us in business, and we set off designing the building and securing our planning permission. We've gone on to raise just about £12 million in total. Still not enough. COVID, my goodness, the costs just keep going up, but we're almost there. We'll be doing our last fundraise through Cedars, through a crowdfunding platform next month and the month afterwards. So you can all own a bit of a whiskey distillery if you want to get involved, have a bit of fun. Anyway, so with money behind us, we embarked on the whiskey distillery thing, but as I say, that took a very long time. So what we decided was the world really needed another gin. So we established a gin distillery with another local producer, Electric Spirit Co. And James from Electric Spirit Co. is moonlighting today as the photographer around the room, hopefully taking lots of lovely pictures of me. And together we formed what we think is possibly the only sort of cooperative distillery in Scotland where two producers are sharing the same space. And from there, we launched our gin in 2018, Linden Lime. We had very conservative aspirations for this. We didn't think the world needed another gin, but what we did think is that there was space with all the wild and wonderful flavors to go back and do something really classic, really sort of a quintessential London dry gin. For all these gins, what should I be tasting? What should a gin taste like? And that's what we wanted to do with Linden Lime Gin. We also wanted to create something that was steeped in provenance from the area that we're from. I'm obsessed with local history, and Linden Lime tells the story, firstly, of James Lind, the Edinburgh doctor who in the 18th century first identified that citrus fruit prevents scurvy. I grew up in Edinburgh. I never knew that person came from here. But he's almost more famous for the fact that he was a surgeon upon a Royal Navy ship, and he split sailors up into 6 different groups and gave them each a separate diet and observed what happened. So it's the first recorded clinical trial. And he observed that the ones who had citrus fruits, for the sake of argument, we'll say they were eating limes, they didn't get scurvy. And he recorded this in a very famous book, Treatise of the Scurvy. Fascinating read if you've got a quiet night. And decades later, the Royal Navy started provisioning their ships with limes and citrus fruit for their sailors. Now, they began by preserving citrus fruits with rum, but in time, this killjoy from Leith called Lachlan Rose found a way to preserve citrus fruit with sugar instead, and he created a lime syrup called Rose's Lime Cordial that many of you will know. Created in Leith, first for sailors, but then became hugely popular on land, and now owned by Coca-Cola and distributed around the world. So those were two stories that sort of grabbed us and again sort of instructed the gin that we came up with. So you have a textbook London Dry gin with a citrus character to it. And it's blown us away. We're now exporting it to 30 countries worldwide. We've won awards all around the world. We never expected this to happen. No, we really didn't. And we did put sustainability at the core of it from day one. It's produced with 100% renewable electricity, which is great considering the gas price at the moment. It's 100% plastic-free materials and 100% organic ingredients. So demand for that has grown to the extent that the little still house where we make it, which I'll explain a bit in a moment, is too small and we're moving into a larger distillery. So we got that going. And in the meantime, finally, in 2019, we got to site and did the most difficult bit of building our distillery, which was the foundations. One day over a pint, I can tell you just how stressful this was, because we're right next to Harbour Wall. But we needed strong foundations because this is the whiskey distillery that we're building, Scotland's first vertical distillery. I'll talk more about that in a minute, but first of all, I'll just give you our locations. So here's the bird's eye view of Leith. That's where we are at the sort of northeast tip of the bit of land where Ocean Terminal Shopping Centre is, just 20 metres along the quayside from the Royal Yacht Britannia. And I'll just take the opportunity to say we couldn't have had a better, more supportive neighbour in Royal Yacht Britannia. Bob Downey from day one took us seriously, which was kind of mad of him, actually, to some extent. But they've been so supportive, and we're very fortunate to be next door to them. There is the Royal Yacht Britannia, and to give you some context, that's where the tram is going as well. But we're very lucky to be building, really, plugging into a fantastic existing infrastructure in terms of, the amount of people coming down there, but hopefully giving them a new and exciting reason to come down to our corner of Leith. Over here, you see where our current gin distillery is, the Tower Street Stillhouse. If you've ever had your car towed, we're next to the Pound. Really romantic spot. It's lovely. Although now they're building flats on top of that, so I don't know where the Pound's gone if your car's been towed today, sorry. But as I say, we've outgrown that space, and so we're now moving to a fantastic new distillery on Coburg Street. You know the old sports warehouse. I used to pick up my daughter's school uniform from there. They've moved out of town, and we were lucky to take their site. That's the historic shore in Leith and Ferry Road, again, just to give you some context of where we are in Leith. So I'm going to talk about the Linden Lime Distillery first, because that's actually opening in May. So this is it. It doesn't look like this at the moment. It hasn't been painted yet. This is a mock-up. We've got a great designer who can do these things. So that's the Linden Lime Distillery, and this is what it's looking at like as of last week, which I can tell you is it doesn't look like it, but it's almost finished. And if 10 years ago I'd found this site, we probably never would have built the Port of Leith distillery, because this is in my mind, what I had in my mind as a sort of, that small scale distillery. It's in this sort of urban warehouse. It's a fantastic space. It's really exciting. We're going to be able to not only offer a really sort of top end tour there, but also we have event space for 140 people. And so, we think about the weddings and catered events we can do there as well. It's also going to be the HQ for our company. A really exciting space. First of all, visitors will come into our shop here, which is actually our retail arm, as I say, is branded as the Leith Export Company, so that we can sell not just our products, but also products from other distilleries who we admire. I was just talking to our friends at Holyrood Distillery. We'll be selling their gin and other sort of small-scale producers. That's sort of the ambition for the Leith Export Company. And this is our bar that we'll be building during the tour. Obviously, people will come here and we'll be doing a cocktail mixing class. But it's also something that we can use for events if you want to come down and do a shindig down at the Linden Lime Distillery. That's what it's looking like at the moment. It's coming together. So we've decided to put together a premium tour. We've been on a lot of tours, and we've taken all of our favorite things and put them into one. So tickets have just gone on sale for tours starting from the 12th of May. We're starting off with 3 days of tours a week, with 3 tours on each day. We'll see how that grows. And of course, we can do corporate tours the rest of the week, or anything bespoke that people might come up with. As I say, there's going to be a cocktail mixing element of it, but we also decided that people can come down. We do everything in this space. We make the gin, we also bottle it. It's all packaged there. Everything happens in the one space. So visitors on tours will get to come and bottle their own miniature bottle of Linden Lime as well and stick the labels on. If you ask our bottling team, they're going to say, sorry, people are paying to do this? But yes, it should be fun. I should say, we have prepared goodie bags for all of you this afternoon. When you hand in your passes, you should be given a little bag with one of these and a bottle of tonic, so you can have a little G&T this evening. So, and wait, there's more. No, you're getting a free G&T. We've also created a discount code that you can use on the website, ETAG 2022, to book yourself some tickets to come on a tour, absolutely free. Look forward to welcoming you. And of course, please just get in touch with me as well if you have something bigger that you'd like to do. If you'd like to book yourself in, for a tour in May, we'd love to see you there. So there we go. So that's Linden Lime. And now on to Port of Leith Distillery. I sort of should be keeping track of the time a little bit better, but there we go. This is the Port of Leith Distillery, a vertical distillery. Now, we didn't set out to build a vertical distillery. I can tell you, don't do that. It's mad. It's very expensive and stressful. But it's vertical because we had a very tiny piece of land. And our business plan was always, if we could find a location next to the Royal Yacht Britannia, then we knew we could have visitors in the early years who could get us through the awfully long wait of producing whiskey. So hence, that's why we built up. But actually, building up has certain advantages. It's very good for airflow, which is important in whiskey production, so you don't blow up. That's always good. Number two, we're able to, there's an elegance in the production where we're lifting up grain and water halfway up the building. It works its way down the building and you get whiskey out the bottom, which is very nice. But also it means that the visitor experience is really intrinsic in the architecture of our building. It's going to be quite an exciting sort of tour as they work their way down the building, following the production process. And it's quite dramatic and experiencing that production process in a way that you can't elsewhere. And at the end of it, of course, they can go right back up again to our bar and on the top 2 floors. And the views from there are truly spectacular. So there we go. This is where we are with the building, kind of as of 2 weeks ago. Tim, who's filming today's event, filmed this, got this drone footage for us, actually. So we've just started cladding the building, but that's the steel structure completed. And we expect to be operational, there's a rear view, that's sort of the approach view, if you like, to the distillery. And here you can see these are washbacks already installed. We had to put these in before the cladding goes on. People always say, how are you going to fix them? I'll answer this right now. They're not moving. We won't be able to replace these. If any of these have problems, we're fixing them in situ. And there's mechanical parts that you can replace. The whiskey stills, we will be able to move in and out to replace. It's the underside of the washbacks, one of my favorite bits of the distillery where you can see it underneath. This kind of gives you an idea of within our shop on the 5th floor, and you see down to Britannia on the quay there. We haven't actually designed the interiors, but this gives you a sense of the space on the top 2 floors where we will have our bar, and should be a fantastic space for events again. And there we go, the view looking back to Edinburgh as well. And we do have a lovely view back up to the castle from that rooftop bar. So becoming operational in October of this year, and while there's still a chance we might become a visitor attraction before the end of the year, I'm going to be realistic and say it'll be Q1 of next year, but we're working hard to get open as soon as we can. Just quickly on the whiskey, we've spent the years intervening, working with Heriot-Watt University, researching the role of yeast and fermentation in whiskey production. We've created 24 different new mix from different yeasts not normally used in whiskey production. There's one thing I'm very confident of. We're going to make a really exciting whiskey. I'm very excited with what we've done there. You can see tiny little samples of new make derived from different yeasts there. And we undertook that research over the course of 2 to 3 years. We have a single farm just outside of Edinburgh that we're working with for all of our grain, and that's going to enable us to talk into the way that our single most important raw material is grown. We can talk about the varietals that we're working with, how it's grown. We might be able to go organic or whatever it is that we want to do in the future. Single estate barley, which is rare for a whiskey distillery, an exciting opportunity for us there. And finally, the very first product we ever launched as a company was that sherry, which is totally bonkers, but it kind of came from my background in wine, but we are selling the wines from the producers whose casks we're going to use to mature our whiskey. And that is actually referencing, again, Leith history. Leith is the place where wine was traditionally shipped into the harbour in casks. The sherry, the red wine, whatever it was, would be decanted into bottles that were made locally at the Leith Glassworks. And then the local whiskey merchants would take those casks and put their spirit in it. And it wasn't long before they discovered customers loved the whiskey that had been in the sherry cask or the port cask. We thought that was a fantastic story to tell about where we're from. So we're selling the sherry from the sherry producer whose casks we're going to use, selling the port, white port, and we're going to be extending that into further wines as well. I just placed my first orders for sherry casks and port casks, utterly terrifying, but quite exciting as well. very quickly on the Leith Export Company. So as I say, this is our retail arm. So if you go on our websites and you want to buy any of our products, it leads you to this, our website. And as I say, something that we want to build up into selling other producers' stuff as well. But again, this is sort of inspired for me, again, from Leith's heritage. I got really quite obsessed with reading about past merchants and traders from Leith, and the way that they would go on these bonkers voyages out into the world to try and source wines from Spain or wherever it might have been, put their proprietary label on them and bring them back to Leith. And I've still got a box of Coburn & Co. that my dad had some of his wines from, Coburn & Co. of Leith, who are actually opening a shop very soon in Frederick Street. But I love that idea, and that's something that we wanted to bring back as well to what we're doing. And in that spirit, we've launched our first proprietary product under the Leith Export Company brand, the champagne La Garde Écossaise. La Garde Écossaise was the personal bodyguard of the kings of France centuries ago, inspired by some Scottish troops who went to fight with the kings of France. We've named our champagne sort of referencing that history, and you can't quite see it, but it says produced and imported for the Leith Export Company, taking a fantastic. This was actually sourced for us by Emma Dawson, MW, the buyer at Marks and Spencer's, who I used to sell lots of wine to. It's lovely. The boot's on the other foot now. She sourced this wonderful wine for us that we're now importing and distributing, and something that we're going to expand into other wines as well. So that's a breakneck tour of what we've done as a company. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope we can welcome as many of you as possible to our distilleries in the near future. And I'd like to introduce James McVeigh from Festivals Edinburgh. Thank you.